Pennsylvania Treasurer says no to taxpayers footing $1M in security upgrades at Shapiro's home. Add AP News as your preferred source to see more of our stories on Google. Add AP News on Google. Add AP News as your preferred source to see more of our stories on Google. Share Harrisburg PAR app. Pennsylvania's treasurer refused Thursday to approve payments for more than $1 million in security systems and other upgrades to the private home of Gov. Josh Shapiro, changes that were made after an intruder set fire to the state-owned governor's residence last year in an attempt to kill the Democrat. The treasurer, Republican Stacy Garrity, said there is no legal authorization to use taxpayer dollars to reimburse contractors for the security upgrades on private property, even the private home of a governor. The Pennsylvania State Police submitted the reimbursement requests to the Treasury Department, but appear to have simply ignored the statutory limits and restrictions on spending and procurement, Garrity said during a news conference in her offices. The state police have other options to get taxpayer dollars to underwrite the work, which has already been done. The agency could ask lawmakers to explicitly authorize the payments or enter the state's settlement process for disputes between contractors and state agencies, Garrity said. Shapiro, who is considered a potential top-tier contender for the White House in the 2028 presidential election, is running for re-election this year for a second term as governor. Following last year's attack, he emerged as a prominent voice in condemning political violence. Garrity is expected to be Shapiro's main opponent in the fall election. She is both endorsed by the state GOP and uncontested for the GOP nomination in Pennsylvania's May 19 primary election. Read more. The treasurer said the decision wasn't political and that I don't play these kind of political games. But Shapiro's office blasted Garrity's decision as a shameful political action without legal basis and said the state police were exploring options to ensure it protects its authority and that the contractors get paid. The treasurer should put partisanship aside, follow the law, and show some humanity for a family that has experienced real trauma, the state troopers who protect them every day, and the vendors and workers who the treasurer has now refused to pay, the governor's office said in a written statement. Garrity said the security and well-being of public officials and their families is of the utmost importance to her, and that an attack on the governor is an attack on all of us. Still, she said, her department does not have the legal authority to issue the payments. The security upgrades at Shapiro's home were something of a secret until his administration informed lawmakers about it in a letter last fall. In it, the cabinet official in charge of state property told lawmakers that the threat to a high-profile elected official like Governor Shapiro does not end when he leaves the governor's residence. State officials haven't detailed those upgrades, citing safety reasons. Shapiro, his wife, and 2 of his 4 children still live in the private residence in Abington, a Philadelphia suburb. However, plans for a security fence there spawned dueling lawsuits between the Shapiros and a neighbor over who rightfully owns a sliver of land abutting the 2 properties. So far, the Treasury Department said Thursday it has paid more than $26 million in security upgrades and remediations at the governor's state-owned residence in Harrisburg, where the Shapiros often stay. Those renovations included an anti-climb iron fence that is much higher than the one scaled by the intruder, Cody Barmer. Barmer last year pleaded guilty to the attempted murder of Shapiro. Under a plea deal, Barmer was sentenced to 25 to 50 years in prison, far less than he could have faced if the case had gone to trial. He climbed over a 7-foot 2-meter iron security fence in the middle of the night, eluded 2 state troopers stationed at the residence, and used beer bottles filled with gasoline to set fire to the residence, just hours after Shapiro had hosted a Passover Seder to celebrate the first night of the Jewish holiday. The fire forced Shapiro, his wife, children, and members of his extended family to flee as firefighters battled the blaze. The residence, built in the 1960s along the Susquehanna River about 2 miles (3.2 kilometers) north of the state capital, was badly damaged, but has since been renovated. Follow Mark Levy at http://twitter.com/TimelaWriter